Hi, everyone. We're just going to let some others filter in. We have a lot of people joining us tonight, which is awesome. So we're just going to give it 1 or 2 more minutes. For everyone joining, welcome, welcome. Hello, everybody. We're still filtering some people in, but welcome. We'll learn more about financial aid tonight. So is there already a question in the chat? Yeah, in the Q&A. Yes, actually, for those of you who are here, this recording will be posted on probably both the admissions and the financial aid YouTube. We'll shoot this over to your team and have it posted on your playlist as well. But we'll send you all the link to the admissions YouTube in a confirmation that will go out, or kind of a thank you for joining us tonight. So you'll get that link, but it will be on the Stony Brook University admissions YouTube. Still going. I think we can go ahead and get started, and that way people can join us as they enter. I'll start it off. My name is Christina Lofaso. I'm a senior admissions advisor here at Stony Brook University. I want to thank you all for taking the time to meet with us tonight, and more importantly, congratulations. This is a time to really be proud of your accomplishments and to maybe take a big, deep breath and know that wherever you end up in the fall, it's going to be incredible. But if you do become a Seawolf, I hope tonight will kind of enhance that learning process for you and making you solidify your plans to become a Seawolf for the fall. We have an incredible host tonight. His name is Nicholas Pruitt. He's the Director of Financial Aid, and he's going to be sharing more information about not only financial aid, but really the college costs and what that all means. But I'll let him take it away.
All right. Thank you, Christina. Thank you very much. I'm going to throw up a slide here. And so welcome everybody for joining us. You know, it's really nice. I think we're getting used to using Zoom for a lot of activities. And I think it's great that everyone is out there and joining us. We have a number of people out there. We have some great staff from the Financial Aid Office here to answer some questions. So if you want to throw those in the Q&A piece, we'll be happy to handle those for you as we go along. Every question that we answer is one less question that you might have as far as attending Stony Brook or other institutions. So let's talk a little bit about the Financial Aid Office here and really understanding what is financial aid. I think that's the most important question that we really kind of get. There are different types of aid. There's either gift aid or self-help aid. Gift aid is the type of aid that most people really want. It's the types of scholarships that an institution would offer, or it's the grants that come either from the federal government or from a state entity. In New York, there's the TAP and Excelsior programs, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Other types of self-help aid are either loans, which we do consider self-help aid. That would be a loan that would be taken out in your name or your parents' name to help cover the cost of your education, or also student employment. There are a number of opportunities for student employment on campus, and I'll talk about those in just a little bit. But a lot of people really consider financial aid to be really gift aid. And what we really want to talk about is using financial resources to make sure that your college choice is really affordable for you. So let's go through these. So what are the sources of federal aid? The first type of aid really comes from the federal government, and that starts with filing the FAFSA. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. The state of New York has a couple of great aid programs, which we'll also go into greater detail with. It's from the Higher Education Services Corporation, or as we refer to it as HESC. So HESC.ny.gov is the website for that. There are a couple of different aid programs that are available to students from the state. A lot of other states have different state grant aid programs that are available out there that may or may not require an application. So make sure that you're checking with your individual state for that. Colleges and universities also offer offer different types of financial aid, either grants or even sometimes scholarships. Private sources, we have students who bring in millions of dollars each year from local and community associations or organizations. You know, a local Rotary Club or a local maybe charitable organization offer scholarships to students. We typically encourage students to reach out to their high school counselors, and maybe a lot of counselors have a board outside of their office where they post scholarship opportunities. That really falls into that civic organizations and churches. We've also seen a growing number of employers around the country that are offering scholarships to their employees or the dependents of their employees. So there's a number of opportunities that are available out there. For those who haven't made it through the process, here's kind of our timeline. I always like to put this up. October 1st is when the FAFSA becomes available, and that's something that becomes available each year. So make sure that we encourage you to file your FAFSA by October 1st. We hope everybody out there has already filed. We set a February 15th priority date. That is for some of our limited funded programs, and we send out our award notices in late March. We try to communicate with everyone who files a FAFSA to at least send them an email that says, hey, we got your FAFSA and we're going to award you at a later time. The bulk of our financial aid scholarships actually went out on the 23rd of March this year. So if you filed your FAFSA and you've been admitted to the institution and you haven't received your award notice, we would encourage you to log into your Solar account and take a look at your awards, or reach out to the financial aid piece. You know, the application process here in the state is first applying to Stony Brook and being an admitted student, filing their FAFSA, and then as part of that financial aid award package, which I'll go into greater detail a little bit later, really encourages you to fill out or qualify for New York State aid. State of New York does provide a number of opportunities for our students to really qualify for aid pieces. There's a link in the chat box there if you want to log into your Solar account or if you have questions about that. On occasion, the financial aid office will reach out to you and will ask you for some additional documentation. That's part of our requirements, either at the state or at the federal level, to just make sure everything is accurate in your application. So we encourage you to review your to-do list on your Solar account to make sure all of that information has been kind of handled. For those that aren't familiar, I'll kind of go through this one pretty quickly, but fafsa.ed.gov is the website where we would encourage you to log in. Once again, we do encourage you to file your FAFSA each and every year to make sure you've done that. We have had a number of students reach out recently, and the question really relates to, hey, I wasn't maybe looking at Stony Brook, or maybe I was really interested in another institution, but now I need to add Stony Brook school code to my FAFSA. How do I do that? On this website, you'll see a link there that says, are you a returning user? And there's actually a link right here in the middle of the page that says add a school. You can add a certain number of schools. It's usually 10, and sometimes you have to make some adjustments to really add those. And you can also log in and take a look at what your student aid report might actually be. All right, so let's go on to the next one. If you're filing your FAFSA, for those who maybe haven't already done that, you do need your 2020 tax information for the 22-23 school year. I always like to remember this, that we use 2020 in the fall of 21 for the 22-23 school year. And really I'm listing 4 aid years, but that's kind of how the process works. The 2020 income for a number of our families has really been impacted by COVID. And so if you've had any changes, I'll talk a little bit about that later. You would include your income information and any benefit summaries that you may have from folks. And any other information. The FAFSA has a number of questions on it, and it uses skip logic. Nationally, there were about 27 million FAFSAs filed last year, and the average time to complete those was about 18 or 19 minutes. So if you haven't done that, it doesn't necessarily take a super long time, but we do encourage you to file the FAFSA. One other question that we do get frequently related to the FAFSA is, I know I may not qualify for any grant programs. Is it worth my time to file the FAFSA? We always encourage everyone to file the FAFSA and have one on file, even if you don't want to take the aid immediately. Anyone who files the FAFSA is automatically going to qualify for federal student loans. If you don't want those, You can always decline them. And if you decide at a later point during the academic year that you want those loans back, all we really need you to do is stop by our office or shoot us an email and say, hey, give me my loans back. And we can have those to you probably in about 5 to 7 days. If you have to start the process from scratch, it's really going to take you about 2 to 3 weeks. One of the other benefits of filing a FAFSA is we do have a number of scholarship programs that do require some level of financial need. We try to be very liberal with our interpretation of need. So if you have $1,000 of financial need and we have a scholarship that requires need and you meet the qualifications, we're often able to award those to you. FAFSA notes, we have a number of unique circumstances of who qualifies. The FAFSA really comes down to your parental contribution and then a student contribution. So if you have any changes in your family income, if we're using information from 2020, we've seen a lot of instances where maybe one parent has lost income or parents have divorced, parents have remarried, some type of change of income. We do need you to start filing the FAFSA with that most accurate information that really comes from 2020 and then follow up from there. Let's see. The New York State aid program. So you'll see a link on here that says hesc.newyork.gov. This is the second or third time that I've mentioned that. One of the most popular programs that we offer students is what's called the New York TAP program. It's a program that's designed for New York State residents. And by residents, that means that you live in New York and you earn income from the state of New York. You also need to have a FAFSA on file, and the awards range from about $500 to $5,665. I like to say that we have a nice partnership with the state agency. These are awards that the state tells us exactly how much a student is going to qualify to receive. And the state ultimately, the HESC group are the ones that would collect additional documentation from that. HESC would notify the student by email if they have any information, and then they let the school know. When I show the award notices in a little bit, you'll see that sometimes we put on what's called an estimated TAP award. That means we as an institution have taken a look at the information you reported to the state, and we believe that you may qualify for this program, but we need you to fill out an application and complete that application with HESC. HESC will follow up with you if there's missing information. We do our best to work with them to make sure that you're receiving the most accurate and most complete information related to that. On occasion, they will need to verify your income or verify the number of siblings that you may have in other institutions. If they do send you a notice, please make sure that you are very accurate in that information and you follow up with them as we kind of go along. New York State also has a number of other scholarship programs. You'll see a list over here, the World Trade Center Memorial, Flight 587, there's a STEM initiative, there's an Academic Excellence Scholarship. We, as an institution, don't control the criteria for those, and that's where we do our best to direct you back to their website, and it's worth your time to really go through and look at what those qualifications for those awards are going to be. We encourage you to complete the application and turn in any additional information that you may have with them. Please bear in mind that a number of these awards do require you to be a full-time student and take courses that are degree applicable. I always like to say that if you're interested in taking something like underwater basket weaving, please make sure that underwater basket weaving is required as part of your program plan of study. If it's not, it may impact your eligibility for some of these awards. If you're curious about some of these scholarships, please visit the website and take a look at the awards and the criteria and complete the application if they may apply to you. Another popular program that we offer is the Excelsior Scholarship. Excelsior Scholarship is what we consider a last tuition dollar award. And that gets really complex when we're working with families because they say, what last tuition dollar, what does that mean? The state of New York has created the Excelsior Scholarship to guarantee that students and families that have an earned income of $125,000 or less do not have to pay tuition to attend a New York State school. The application needs to be completed and students must sign the Excelsior contract and agree to the terms and conditions. One of those conditions is that you must reside in the state of New York for each year that you receive the Excelsior Award after you graduate and complete your degree. If you don't do that, then it turns into a loan program. There's a link in the chat if you're curious about those awards. One of the other pieces of the Excelsior Scholarship is that each academic year you must complete 30 hours, or you must have a total of 30 credits completed after the first year, 60 after the second, 90 after the third, and then your graduation year of 120. It's about 120 credit hours to graduate. You can build up extra hours by taking summer courses or bringing in some transfer hours. The goal is to get students to graduate in 4 years. The other piece is each of those credit hours must count towards your degree program. So if you want to major in 2 degrees, we're only going to count your first major degree. And so that does kind of trip up some students along the way. Students need to be able to complete all those courses. The other piece that I really want to stress is that it's a last dollar award. So if you have a scholarship and possibly a Pell Grant that is in excess of what our tuition is, that means that you would not receive the Excelsior Scholarship. Last year, we had a few hundred students that were eligible for the Excelsior Scholarship, but their technical award amount was a $0 award. And that's because the other aid that they had exceeded what that tuition number is. Roughly, I would say our tuition is about $7,000 a year. So if you maybe have a presidential scholarship from Stony Brook and some combination of other awards that exceeds that $7,000, while you would qualify based on income for the Excelsior Scholarship, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to receive the Excelsior Scholarship on top of any of the other awards. So earlier I talked about the award notices that we sent out to institutions, or to students, my apologies. We participate in the SUNY system and we send out a standard award notice to all of our students. And I'm going to break down the individual components of the award notice. So don't worry about this maybe being small on your phone or on your computer as you're taking a look at it. What we want to do is list out all the potential costs that you may have and break those down either into direct expenses or indirect expenses. And I'll go through those in a little bit as we go through the slides. We sent these notices out on the 23rd. The bulk of these go out on the 23rd in a direct email. So this is one item that you wouldn't find through your solar system. For the parents that are here tonight, these notices do go directly to the student. So please keep that in mind as well. So if you haven't seen it or you want to go through it, please check with your student. The student is the one who is officially attending the institution, and that is the one that we communicate with related to financial aid or even billing matters. All right, so let's break these down and we'll go through them in a larger screen so you can kind of see these. I'd like to break down the costs that you're going to pay whether you're attending Stony Brook or you're attending another institution, either into direct costs, and I define direct costs as those costs that you're going to pay directly to the institution. Here, that's going to be tuition, fees, room and board for on-campus students, and those are directly billed by the institution. You'll see here that our tuition and fees are about $10,500 per year, and our estimate for housing and meals is $16,594. What we do is we take a weighted average of the total housing and meals for our students on campus. And so this can vary from student to student, whether you're in a single or a double or a suite style, and whether you're taking a limited meal plan, a moderate meal plan, or an unlimited meal plan. So your costs could vary from this from time to time. Indirect costs are expenses that you're going to have whether you're a senior in high school or a freshman in college. These are the costs of books, late night pizza parties, laundry detergent, soap, personal expenses, and things like that. Basically things that aren't going to show up on a direct bill from the institution. You'll see that we estimate books at about $900 a year. For students that are residing on campus, we estimate transportation costs at $500 per year. And then we estimate those other educational costs, which are personal expenses. As we look at the award offers here, we like to break these down into what are, as we talked earlier about what are direct aid or gift aid. So these are where we would list any grants or any scholarship opportunities for students. You'll see that we like to be very upfront and say these are grants that are towards your total cost of attendance. You'll see here in the center that the total amount of grants and scholarships for this sample student is about $19,000. You'll see a federal Pell Grant listed there, an SEOG grant, a New York State EOP program grant, and then a TAP grant estimate. If you recall earlier, I talked about the TAP estimate. So this is a student that has a Pell Grant that is a New York resident, and we believe if they complete the HESC application, they would qualify for a TAP award of about $4,700. This also includes an SBU grant. And then you'll notice this other piece down here called a SUNY tuition credit estimate. One of the things that the state of New York does very well is to try to cut costs for programs. And so the TAP estimate is the top part of the award, but we as an institution are only allowed to charge a certain amount of tuition for students that receive the TAP grant. And so we post that as a credit on students' bills. You'll see after these grants are applied to the student's account, the total net cost to attend of the full cost of attendance is about $10,800, including all the aid. Other options that we have to pay for students, and these are options that we have come forward that really fit students, is other loan options that are there. Loan options are listed here, and one of the questions that we often get is, what is the interest rate for student loans? So we are very upfront with that. And what is the total amount of student loans that you can take out? You'll see here that for a first-year student, the maximum amount of loans that you can take out is about $5,500. And so for the parents that are listening tonight, $5,500 when maybe you went to school, that would probably be enough to cover tuition. Here, that covers about half of what the costs are going to be. You'll see other options here are either private student loans, which would be a loan that would be taken out in the student's name that would most likely need a credit-worthy co-signer to go along with it. A Parent Plus loan, which is a loan that's taken out in the parent's name. The parent would ultimately be responsible for that, and repayment would start 60 days after the final disbursement. So if you took out a loan for fall and spring, you would start making payments in mid to late March. Other options, the university participates in a program called the TOP program, where you would pay a flat fee to participate, and then it would be an interest-free monthly payment. So if you have a remaining balance, that would be divided between the fall over 3 or 4 months, depending on which program you sign up for. You also see in this package that there's work study listed. That's where a student would get a campus-based job. Work study is a need-based program, and it does require the FAFSA to be filed by our priority date. All right, I've had one question that's popped up when I was talking about the Excelsior grant earlier is, when will the application be available for the Excelsior grant? Right now, the HESC group has told us that it will be available in May or early June. You can actually go to their website and sign up for notifications, and they'll actually let you know when the application becomes live, and you can go ahead and complete that. For those that are interested in completing the TAP application is currently available for the fall term, so you may go ahead and fill that out. We do have some families that get a little confused because the deadline to apply for TAP is actually listed as June, but it will actually be June of 2023, not 2022. So if you log into the website, the application for students that are currently enrolled is still live out there. So that's something that we can kind of go through. So back to this slide that I have up, the total net cost after taking all the aid for this student is about $2,800 for the year. You'll recall that our total cost of attendance included those personal expenses on the previous slide. This is what we would consider, a healthy financial aid scholarship package. That is, if you're including those student loan options. If you do not want to take out your student loans, sorry, my apologies. Sometimes this thing skips ahead a little bit. I'm going to go back to one slide here, and you'll see in the center of the page, it says an expected family contribution. When you file a FAFSA, it determines what's called an EFC, or an expected family contribution. That's how much the FAFSA determines that you or your family should be able to contribute towards the cost of your education based upon the income information that you have listed there. It is not a guarantee that you will receive aid. It's what we use as kind of an aid index to determine the total amount of aid that we're able to offer you. And so in this case, an EFC of $529 qualifies for almost a full Pell Grant. All right, so let's go through these. That EFC is for the full year, not for just one semester. All right. So we went through these. Key takeaways is the net cost is what we use to determine exactly how much you're going to pay. Earlier today, I had a family who reached out and they said that they were interested in attending a private school from New Jersey. And that school was offering them a scholarship of about $35,000. And our scholarship wasn't close to that amount. And I think the family thought, oh, this other school really wants me more. And so when I sat down and I broke down what the total net costs were with that family, it was easy to show that Stony Brook was still a more affordable option, even though the other institution was offering a higher scholarship. So we really want you to be aware of what your total costs are. And we think that the Smart Track award letter really kind of helps that. All right. We also like to be upfront and list all the costs. So you've seen that posted in the award notice. Here's another slide, and this is published on our website for students that are going to be living on campus. Tuition, as I noted with the Excelsior Scholarship, is just a little over $7,000. You'll see that there are campus fees that are related to courses and other campus participation fees that are included as part of your tuition and fee total. The housing component and the meal component broke out separately for a total direct cost of about $27,000 for a student that's residing on campus. The total cost of attendance, as you'll notice by this slide, is about $30,000. That once again, that just goes back to those indirect costs that you won't be paying to the institution, but costs that we anticipate you to experience as you're a student who is attending. Let's see. Students who choose to live with their parent have a reduced cost. So you'll notice that we set a cost living allowance for students that are living at home and that choose to commute to campus. And you'll see that this total cost of attendance is published at about $22,000, where living on campus is about $30,000. We have a number of students that do commute. We have a number of students that commute by train from Nassau County, or we have some students that come in from the city to really kind of cut down on the living expenses. You know, once again, it's just a specific kind of personal option. Students who tend to live on campus and students who work on campus either 7 to 10 hours a week actually do better academically than students who don't work on campus. I always like to bring up those pieces. So how do you accept or decline your financial aid? Notices for scholarships went out to students as part of that award package. Notices for aid went as part of the award package. So you're always able to log into your Solar account and choose to accept or decline that. We have a nice PDF that's listed on our website about how to accept or decline your aid through the Solar process. Once again, if you choose to decline your loans, you can decline those and ask for those back at any time, so long as school is still active and still in session. Earlier, I talked a little bit about work study. Work study is a federal need-based program. On our campus, we have thousands, and I say literally, we have thousands of students that are working in campus positions, but only a small subset of those are federal work study students. Federal work study is a need-based program that does require a FAFSA, does require a student to demonstrate financial need, and it does require the FAFSA to be filed by the 15th of February each year. We have, as an institution, about $1.5 million of work study available on campus, federal work study. Our campus minimum wage is $15 per hour. So those dollars and those hours don't really go super far. We also have thousands of students that do choose to work on campus in positions that aren't directly work study. So you don't necessarily have to have a work study position to get a position on campus. I think that's one of the myths, or that's one of the most popular questions that we do get associated with that. Here's a link to the campus website related to how can you find a job. All of our positions that are posted on campus go through our Career Center website through a process called Handshake, where we are able to post those campus positions and allow students to find campus opportunities. If you're a prospective student and let's say it's June, July, or August, we do encourage you to start looking at that campus website, because if you haven't noticed, there is a need for people to work in a number of positions, and that our campus is no exception. And so we're always there, and we're always interested in having students come work on that. If you're trying to get a copy of your award package, sometimes we come across donors or we come across families that do have some questions. They maybe want to see what other aid is before they provide you maybe with a Rotary scholarship or something like that. You can print off a PDF copy of your award directly in the Solar page. And so I would encourage you to do that or provide that. On occasion, we are required to complete kind of a needs analysis form or other forms. If you need something like that, please reach out to our office by email, and we're happy to put a checklist or add an item for you to upload the document. We'll complete it and then we'll send it to your donor. We want to make it as seamless as possible to get that information completed so that you can receive the aid, so that you can attend Stony Brook. I think that's ultimately what our goal is going to be. So timeline. So let's say you have your financial aid. What do we need to do next? Well, right now we encourage you to review exactly what the costs are to attend Stony Brook or any of the other institutions you're interested in. We also encourage you to compare the costs. A lot of times when you're comparing institutions, you may have an institution that is a great academic fit and it's a great personal fit, but sometimes it's not the best financial fit. We can come across many situations where our goal is to really help you make that determination. A personal fit, an academic fit, and a financial fit. And sometimes we get down to where you get maybe two of those three, and it's up to you and your family to really make the determination and see exactly which might be the best fit for you. So the next process, we encourage everyone to put their enrollment deposit down. That allows you to go ahead and put a housing deposit if you're going to reside on campus. And the next piece that's going to happen will be summer orientation. And then bills typically go out somewhere around the 20th of July with a due date of around August 15th. If all of your financial aid is available and ready to go, when that bill comes out, you'll see your total charges, you'll see your total financial aid, and you'll see exactly what the difference is going to be that you will either owe to the institution or that may be refunded to you. I think this is one of the popular questions that we get is, so I have enough financial aid to cover my costs. I'm going to live at home. What happens to the extra aid? So financial aid your costs are billed by semester. So you're billed for the fall semester, you're billed for the spring semester. Your financial aid is divided for the fall and the spring. If your aid is more than what your charges are in your account, then we would issue you a direct refund. We encourage you to sign up for direct deposit so it goes directly into your checking account, your checking or savings account. Otherwise, a check would be issued and there would be a slight delay between the time that we actually disperse funds. That's a term we use to say that we're crediting it to your account and when we actually refund the aid to you. Refunds typically are a couple of weeks after the start of the term. If you are a Pell Grant student and you do need money for books, please don't hesitate to reach out to the financial aid or the bursar's office and we can help you with some of those costs. August, so the billing cycle is typically bills go out on the 20th of the month, starting in July with a due date in August, and then they would typically run from the 20th to the 15th. That is kind of variable. The last few years with COVID have created some billing challenges and some time frame challenges as we've tried to work with our students. And so we're trying to get back to a more normal cycle. But if you're trying to plan on it, that's exactly what it's going to be. When you sign up for new student orientation and you come for the summer, they'll go into greater detail exactly about the bills, the bill due dates, and exactly what the payment plan enrollment process looks and kind of how all those pieces go together. Let's see, what are your options to fill the gap? So I think I showed a slide a little bit earlier with the financial aid kind of offer sheet. Options to make up the difference are either to pay out of pocket to help cover those costs. You can divide those up over the top payment plan and make that over 3 or 4 months, or process a Parent Plus loan. If you go to our website, there's a link, and I will probably get somebody to drop that into the chat box for you with a link to how to apply for a Parent Plus loan. That application for the fall isn't currently available quite yet. Part of the reason is the Department of Education is the servicer on the loans, and a credit check is actually good for 90 days. So we try to do this careful balance between the start of class when we would actually disperse those loans and when the application becomes live. So those applications typically start somewhere around the first part of June to the middle part of June to make sure that we can really get that parent loan process for you. The parent loan does require a credit check, so it does need to be a credit-worthy individual. I've seen parents in what we would consider kind of blended families. One time we had where a mother, father, stepmother, and stepfather all took out a loan for one student. So you don't necessarily have to be the custodial parent or the parent on the FAFSA. You just need to be a parent of the student. Just to be clear, grandparents and guardians are not eligible to take out the Parent Plus loan. Students can also apply for a private educational loan. This is where there's some federal rules where I'm not allowed to really mention any of those, but if you think of a bank or if you think of student loans and think of a name associated with student loans, they probably do a private student loan. The issue with these is the interest rates and the repayment options are really going to vary from lender to lender. And we have a link on our website where it will kind of help you through that process and help kind of navigate and see exactly what those rates are. Typically, these are a little bit more variable rates as opposed to the federal student loans or the Parent Plus loans. All right, so now we've gone to, so I've talked for a little bit and I'll ask for folks to throw me some popular questions and we'll kind of get those up here. Let's see what's in the list. Trying to see if any are tagged. Let's see. I'm going to go through the popular answered questions here. Christina, do you have some questions that you would like to bring forth? And I would be happy to answer those.
Yeah, I think a lot of, I saw a lot of students asking about being undocumented and just the kind of potential for any sort of aid for them.
Yeah, so the state of New York, the TAP program does have additional options for students that are undocumented. I would encourage you to go to the TAP website. Otherwise, if you're not eligible to file a FAFSA, that does eliminate many of your federal aid options. So if that helps. Does that answer your question, Christina?
Yeah, absolutely. There were a couple questions about the opportunity for payment plans as well for students once they kind of have their financial aid secured.
Yeah, we really want you to determine exactly what that balance is going to be and what your payment options might end up being. So the top plan, you can go to the Student Financial Services website right now and kind of see the terms for this spring term. The deadline for that is already passed, but you can find some additional information that'll kind of help you determine that top payment plan. We do see a number of families that do choose to maybe take out a Parent Plus loan for a portion and then use the top payment plan for the other portion. You know, a lot of these come down to family situations and kind of exactly how you may want to borrow or how you may want to go on a payment plan or maybe have some other things like that. Another question that I haven't seen pop up has to do with 529 plans and using those to help pay for college tuition. A 529 plan is a savings plan that you can, New York has a plan, a lot of states have a plan. So whether you're a resident student or a non-resident student, if you've ever, for parents that are involved, if you've ever had maybe a healthcare flexible spending account, typically you would provide a bill and then you would submit that to the savings plan and then they would issue you the funds. 529 plan functions much the same. Typically they want to see that bill that comes in the summer. You know, around July 20th, due August 15th, you would send that to your 529 provider. You would tell them exactly how much you would want to take out of your 529 plan. In most cases, they send that directly to the institution to have that credited to the bill. Depending on who your provider is, they may actually send that directly to you, so long as you've provided them enough information to go along with that. Christina, what else you got?
I think you pretty much answered a lot of the Excelsior questions that have come in, but there were a couple questions about just the appeal process and what that might look like.
The appeal process for an Excelsior award or for a TAP award?
I think just in general, if a student is not happy or not being able to afford to come to Stony Brook with the existing financial aid package that they've received, what's the appeal? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I think there are a couple of options. If your family has had a change in income, I would encourage you to reach out to our office. We don't start processing those until July. And when I talked about the FAFSA earlier, we're basing all of your need-based aid off of your 2020 income. We realize that 2021 has occurred and we're already in 2022. So we've seen a number of families that have had kind of, you know, a death of a parent, a divorce of a parent, a loss of income, loss of both incomes. If you have situations like that, we can kind of talk to you about how that may impact your need-based aid. So that is kind of one way to pursue that. Right now, what I would say is we would have a conversation, and then we can kind of pursue that in the summer and start collecting additional documentation. Our timeline to process stuff like that does take about 4 to 6 weeks. So it's not something that we would count on by the time that the school year would start. So I think that handles the need-based piece. The other part is, let's say we've sent you a scholarship offer or we sent you an aid package and it's just not enough to attend. We always like to hear from students and kind of hear what those situations are. I also like to say that we are a public state institution that does not have a large endowment. And so we do not have a lot of resources to really compete with other institutional offers or to make adjustments to our offers. So I like to kind of say that, we kind of have a matrix when it comes to our scholarship awards that kind of has a holistic review piece. And so we're not really able to increase those scholarship dollar offers. So a lot of those adjustments really come from, kind of a changes in income or other options. One of the best things that we can do is we can always provide options to pay for Stony Brook, but sometimes that opportunity to attend does come at some type of expense. So I think that kind of helps with things like that. So I think that's my indirect way of saying we really don't have a lot of resources to help kind of negotiate financial aid packages, despite what a lot of articles or newspapers really say that institutions can do.
Okay, let's see what else we have here. I think there's a lot of questions which I can probably answer about enrollment fees and just the general process. So right now, students, in order to secure their seat for the fall semester, are asked to pay. Now, if you're a general applicant, if there's a lot of EOP students here, don't listen if you're EOP, okay? But if you're a general admissions applicant, students are required to pay a tuition deposit of $150, an orientation fee of $300. And now that covers not only some orientation modules to help you learn more about Stony Brook and what we have to offer, but also a lot of programming that goes into Welcome Week. Now, Welcome Week has not even been established yet. We don't have more information for you at this time, but it is the week prior to classes starting. Not only students that are living on campus, but also commuter students are expected to be there. And there's a lot of events that happen that week. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of kind of social events as well. And it allows students to meet not only other new students, but students that might be their lifelong friends, which happens without kind of the stress of classes starting. So just note that that orientation fee goes towards a lot of different event planning. Now, if you're planning on living on campus, there's also a $200 campus housing deposit. That does not have to be paid if you are going to be commuting back and forth. So just make sure that you note that how to pay those deposits in your Solar account. If you have any issues with paying those deposits, please let us know. You can actually contact our Student Financial Services office that will assist you with that. That is a little bit different than financial aid. Actually, Nick, if you could talk about the difference between the two departments, perhaps?
Sure. So I think financial aid our goal is to provide you resources to help cover your charges. Our friends in Student Financial Services are the ones who actually collect the bills. And so we have a really close partnership, but we don't necessarily focus on the same thing. Does that kind of answer your question, Christina?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now,
one other thing, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Let me address another question. So a lot of students want to know how to cover their books because we listed those as indirect expenses. We see a number of students who buy their books from the bookstore, which is one option. Another option is students maybe go to an online bookseller and purchase the books. I think everyone is a smart and savvy shopper, and I think the internet has really kind of helped that. If you're buying books online, make sure you're paying very close attention to that it's the same book that's offered in class would be my one piece. But your financial aid doesn't directly go to pay your books. What happens is we would issue you a refund of financial aid if it's enough to cover your tuition fees and then housing and meals if you're on campus. And then you would use that refund to help cover what your book costs are going to be. Okay, Christina?
Yeah, absolutely. There are quite a few questions about that, so I'm glad you answered that. Wow, there's a lot of questions in the chat. For those of you who are saying your questions were not answered, I do apologize. We've got hundreds and hundreds of questions rolling in, and our team of incredible financial aid staff are answering away. So I apologize if we haven't gotten to your question yet. In regards to the financial aid package, when do we know the final number? So do they get a bill? Do they get a final financial aid package?
Yeah, so we've sent out the financial aid package based on the information from the FAFSA and based on any scholarship offers. So we've sent those out thus far. If there's any changes to your aid package, we will update those as the semester goes along. So your financial aid is what we've offered right now. You can see in solar. It's not usually subject to change, but sometimes other information does come in. I've seen a couple of questions that have popped up in the chat about Excelsior. So what if I want to do Excelsior, but I'm not sure if I'm going to meet all the qualifications, or the application isn't out? How do I commit before that application comes out? I think HESC does a really good job of walking students through exactly what the eligibility criteria is for the Excelsior Award. But keep in mind that our tuition and fees are about $10,000. The maximum Excelsior Award is $7,000. So it does leave a little bit of a gap. Now, if you were to take out if you receive the Excelsior Award plus take out your full student loans, and then maybe you lived at home, that would be enough to cover tuition, fees, plus your books, plus enough to commute back and forth to campus. And so, each family situation is a little different. So if you have specific questions about maybe your ability to pay or your family situation, don't hesitate to reach out to our office either by email or give us a call. We're happy to help, and we're happy to look at your situation and kind of see exactly what we can do to help. We're not making guarantees that we can come up with a great solution. I always like to say that we can provide access at the expense of affordability, and that means that we're probably going to offer some type of loan options or ways to really overcome that difference.
Are students offered student loans when they file for FAFSA automatically? And is there any sort of need for a master promissory note? This sounds like someone who knows what they're talking about. Is there any need for a master promissory note or entrance counseling?
Yeah, when you file the FAFSA, everyone based on their level in school. So a first-year student qualifies for $5,500 of student loans. A second-year student qualifies for $6,500. And a third or fourth year student qualify for $7,500 of student loans. That's by filing the FAFSA, regardless of what your financial need level is. I always like to say if Bill Gates filed the FAFSA, he could take out a parent loan, provided he passed the credit check, and his students and his kids could qualify for a federal student loan. So we try to make this easy. So we would have you log into your Solar account and go to your Accept Decline Financial Aid page. You check the Accept box next to your student loans. And then we're going to ask you to do two things the very first time you get a loan. One is a master promissory note. That's an agreement between you and the government that you're going to pay back the loan after you graduate. The other one is an entrance loan counseling quiz, which is a federal requirement of all student loan borrowers, basically going through information to let you know that you are taking out a loan and it does have to be repaid.
We had someone ask if I could ask you to review the 529 payment options just one more time.
Sure, just kind of a quick overview of 529 plans. You would go to your plan and see exactly what they're going to require from the school. And probably 90% of the cases, they're going to want that bill that comes out from the institution. You're going to send that to them, and then you're also going to tell them exactly how much you want to withdraw. So let's say your 529 has $30,000 in it. The tuition is $10,000. Do you want to take out that full 10? Do you want to take out 5? Do you want to take out less? That's kind of up to you if you want to divide it out over kind of the 8 semesters that you may be in school, or if you want to use it all up front. This is me personally speaking, not the financial aid person. I always like to think of a 529 sort of like a coupon. If I don't use it when I'm at the restaurant or the store, I may forget about it, or I may not be able to use it to my full benefit. But that's me. That's not necessarily the financial planner person in me. All right. Christina, one other thing is, outside scholarships. If you go to our website, we have a link for kind of outside scholarship sources, finaid.org, fastweb.com. There are a number of scholarship resources that are available to students out there. We encourage you to file those applications. They're available kind of year round. Some of them are kind of peculiar. You have to be like a left-handed high school golfer whose father served in the Vietnam War, and you may qualify for a scholarship. But there are a number of applications. We had a student worker in our office who filled out like 40 of those, heard back from 4 places and got one $2,000 scholarship. And so when we asked her, she said, yes, it was worth my time to do so. You should never have to pay to fill out a scholarship application. That's my biggest tip for anyone who's kind of hearing this or seeing that information.
So there's a lot of students that are having trouble finding their Smart Track award.
Yeah, the Smart Track award notice was actually emailed to students, and the bulk of those went out on the 23rd. So that notice that said, hey, you've received financial aid, log into your solar account. There was also an attachment to that that was the Smart Track award letter. If you want another copy of that, send an email to our general email box, and we'll pull out the one that we sent to you and drop it back into an email for you.
If students have higher SAT, ACT scores or provide any additional information, is there any way for students to be reconsidered for any sort of scholarships?
Yeah, our scholarships are a holistic review process. So if you have maybe an SAT or an ACT score that you didn't send in, or if you've had a drastic change after your 6th or 7th semester grades, send those in, and our admissions team and financial aid team would be happy to take a look at those.
Okay. I'm sort of seeing a lot of like one-offs, a lot of still questions about Excelsior. So I want to mention, again, I mentioned it in the beginning, but I know there are others that have joined us, that this session was recorded. It's going to be available on the Stony Brook University admissions YouTube, as well as the financial aid YouTube. I did go ahead and put that link in the chat for you. So I know you've been utilizing Q&A for your questions. Make sure to click on the chat bubble on the bottom as well. Click on a whole bunch of those links if they sound of interest to you, and get them open in another tab, and you can review them after we conclude tonight, because we're just about out of time, everybody. There's some questions about meal plans. More information will be coming to all of you about next steps. Are there any next steps that you can provide more information for, Nick?
Next steps, I encourage everyone to take a look at their solar account, pay attention to any emails that our office or maybe admissions or other folks on campus are sending out to you. Financial aid does a really good job of setting what's called a to-do list, where you would, we'll send you a notice that says, hey, you have a message, you need to take a look at it. That may be that we need to confirm what your citizenship is. We may need to confirm information that was filed on your FAFSA, kind of a whole host of other information. Keep an eye on that. We try to be as proactive as we can to communicate with you, but that does, it is a partnership. We do encourage you to read all the information, and maybe we're not the only school you're looking at, but make sure that you're paying attention there.
Okay, so for those of you, I know there's a lot of EOP students here. I just went ahead and put my email in the chat for you. It's my own email. I'm the EOP coordinator for the university. Please feel free to reach out to me. We don't have time to touch upon that tonight. So if you want to learn more about EOP, or why EOP doesn't have to pay deposits, or what next steps are, please reach out to me there. How competitive would you say the Excelsior Scholarship is? Because I know there's usually some issues with that.
I would say the Excelsior Scholarship is really based on the award criteria. So if you meet the qualifications and you agree to the contract terms, and you're able to complete 30 credit hours the first year and be at 60 by the second year, that program is for you. I do want to stress that it does cover your tuition, but it's after any other awards. So maybe you received a presidential award, or maybe you have a Pell Grant. Those pay first, and then the Excelsior does pay second. And I think that is sort of one of those things that I wish we could get out and tell a lot more students about, that you're not getting your tuition covered and the other awards. It's what awards do you have, and does that cover your tuition? And that was the guarantee that the state of New York made to our students.
Now, in regards to other next steps, because there has been some questions about that, once you pay your deposits, what happens? And we get that question a lot. Now, once you pay your deposits, you're going to be requested to fill out something called your undergraduate college preferences form if you're a first-year student. So just make sure you go ahead and do that. And that's kind of what's happening right now. Now, in the next month, you're going to receive something called a net ID, which is a single sign-on for a whole bunch of Stony Brook portals. So keep on the lookout for a net ID and your Stony Brook email. Now, from this point forward, though, Make sure you're checking your own personal email and any other emails that you might have applied with throughout the year, as well as your Stony Brook email that gets provided to you at least 1 or 2 times a week, so you don't miss anything from financial aid or admissions or undergraduate colleges or new student programs. We're all going to be emailing you about next steps and keeping you on there. There's nothing for you to do right now. You can't resolve a lot of holds yet, so more information to come, everybody. Do you have any last minute tips or notes, Nick, that you want to provide the group before we conclude?
No, I think the most important thing is to make sure that you're thinking about that college does cost money at some point in time. And I think that's something that has been sort of lost. And I don't mean that as a negative thing. It's just colleges do cost some type of money. And we as an institution at Stony Brook or other schools around the country do our best to help you cover those costs. But it doesn't necessarily mean that your education is going to be free, and there is going to be some cost associated with it. So I think that's important. Pay attention to any information that the school is sending out to you. And if there's parents out here, we do communicate with the students, so make sure that you're in good communication with your student about what may be needed and what the deadlines are. And if you're ready to commit to an institution, whether that's us or somebody else, make sure you put your enrollment fee down and get that process started, because that kicks off the housing piece. And some institutions do run out of housing space, so we want to make sure that that's there. Our email address for financial aid is listed in the chat box there. So if you have questions, drop an email out to us. Email is a great way to reach out to our office. We do our best to respond in a very timely manner, so you're not going to be waiting around for a long period of time. And you can send those questions at 2 a.m. and we'll try to get you when we come into the office in the morning. So otherwise, thanks everyone for your time. Our team will finish out some of these questions. Otherwise, drop us an email and we'll be happy to answer those for you.
All right, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us. And thank you so much, Nick, for providing that incredible session. Again, this is recorded, so we're going to share the link with you, but you can always Google Stony Brook University Admissions YouTube and find us on YouTube. We have a whole slew of other financial aid, as well as more about next steps, undergraduate colleges, and a lot more. We hope to see you there, but if not, please feel free to email us anytime. Bye, everybody.